So it's getting closer. We're a couple weeks away, 2024 NFL draft, and I'm still trying to get a feel for how things are going to flow. I feel like I'm starting to get an understanding, but admittedly, like I just due to work, due to school, like shit, like I just haven't spent that much time on this year's draft. There's still time to do so. So I do feel a little bit more disconnected, a little bit more unplugged than I do most years. But such is life sometimes, right? You got to pick and choose your battles and pick and choose where you invest your time. But nonetheless, I do feel like I'm starting to get a pretty good feel for how this draft might flow. Expect several quarterbacks to go very early. That doesn't feel like a big surprise. I don't know how many overall going round one. It may be 5. I've only got 4 going in this mock draft. I can't buy like Penix in round 1 or Nix in round 1 right now. Just maybe Penix, but Penix, whatever the fuck. But I don't know if I could buy that. You're going to have 3 wide receivers likely go in the top 10. The order in which they could be drafted, I still think it's kind of up in the air. I think for those that have assumed that Marvin Harrison Jr. is a unanimous like wide receiver 1 in this class, they're crazy. Because that's just not the way the NFL works. And especially when you look at guys like Nabers and Odunze, it's certainly realistic to expect that a number of teams have MHJ number 2 on their draft board at the wide receiver position. And not out of the realm of possibility that they have him number 3 or number 4. Just saying. It's going to be a top-heavy draft in terms of offense, especially in the first round. The offensive tackle class, the offensive line class, especially early, is going to get a lot of play. So, this is a draft. If you are looking for defensive help, you might be able to get some guys a little later than you normally should because of how top-heavy this draft is offensively and just how much offense is going to be at a premium coming into this year's draft. But anyways, I got a couple more of these mock drafts to do. So here's one, and I played some kind of like what-if scenarios in terms of trades. I only did a couple, and I went in a slightly different direction with one of them this time. Number 1 hasn't changed. Caleb Daniels, God damn it. I'm going to say Jayden Williams, Chase Williams, Caleb Daniels. What the fuck am I doing here? Caleb Williams, it feels pretty much like a lock to the Bears at number 1. So then you'd argue the real draft starts at number 2. And I live here in the RVA area, so in the morning when I'm driving in the vehicle, I hear like the DC sports talk, and it seems to be a lot of split between Jayden Daniels and Drake Maye and who will be the Commander's choice at number 2. Feels absolutely certain they'll take a quarterback, but which one remains to be seen for the moment. Feels like there's been more reports talking about Jayden Daniels, so I'm going to lean in that direction for the moment. Which brings us to number 3 in New England. I know there's been talk about the Patriots wanting to trade out of this pick. You can't do that. Like, you don't have a quarterback. You don't have anything. You have to hope that the quarterback you would take here is going to be the guy. But this is where it gets interesting of like, what's the perception of a J.J. McCarthy versus a Drake Maye? And I think the Patriots would look at McCarthy being as the safer option of the two, which I don't fully disagree that he's safer than Drake Maye, because Drake May's got tremendous upside, but he is erratic as fuck. And where you land on Drake Maye as a prospect comes into like how much you think you could clean up some of the erratic and maximize some of the big time throws. As I argue, he has more overall arm talent than Caleb Williams, but Caleb Williams is infinitely more consistent in terms of execution and accuracy and ball placement, throwing with anticipation, decision making, things like that. So now you got the Patriots at 3, taking J.J. McCarthy. But I say this, like, if Drake Maye gets to 4, you're going to have teams that are going to be chomping at the bit. And that could mean the Cardinals are sitting in the catbird seat. I know it certainly could be tempting for them to want to trade down or not trade down and just take a wide receiver, but you've got to understand your position in the draft. And the Cardinals' position in the draft this time is understanding the game they're in, and that pick, that 4th overall pick, is infinitely more valuable to them in a big trade back than it is sitting there and taking a player at 4, especially if they're not going to draft a quarterback. It's that simple. As they can get a decent to huge haul depending on who they trade back with. And in this case, I rocked the boat a little bit and I went with the Chicago Bears. And one thought there was, well, the Chargers picking at 5 seem destined at this point. After getting rid of Mike Williams, after getting rid of Keaton Allen, not knowing what they have in last year's first-round pick, Quinton Johnston, they got to have some type of wide receiver to throw the ball or to have the ball thrown to them by Justin Herbert. They feel destined to take a wide receiver at 5. Crazier shit has happened, but it feels that way, right? So if you want a wide receiver that you think the Chargers are going to take, you're going to have to jump in front of them. And for all the talk of Bears fans and what they do with the number 9 pick, and I agree, it's critically important. Right? Obviously, Caleb at 1, like he has to pan out or none of this other shit matters and life completely sucks again for a long time. But if he does pan out, this number 9 pick is every bit as important because this is a situation where you maximize that window under Caleb's rookie scale contract over the next 5 seasons. In addition, the Bears desperately need big-time star players, difference makers, game breakers. None of this bullshit of anybody that says, well, they just got to get a solid player at number 9. It's dumb. That's idiotic. No, the fuck they don't. They need a superstar. They have to walk out of this draft with 2 superstars. Period. And one of them has to be Caleb Williams. And you got a lot of Bears fans talking about, well, at 9, maybe Odunze will be there, or maybe they'll take one of the edge rushers, Dallas Turner or Jared Verse. Maybe they'll trade back and take an edge rusher. Some Bears fans maybe starting to think about offensive tackle there at 9, or maybe a slight trade back or slight trade up. And I say this, like, let's not dismiss the possibility of you want to go after it, go fucking after it. And go get somebody like Malik Nabers. Or if you're so inclined, you think MHJ, Marvin Harrison Jr. is wide receiver 1, then go trade up and get him. I have them doing it with Malik Nabers in this spot because he's got more game-breaking ability, in my opinion, than Marvin Harrison Jr. does. And if you're saying, why would you have the Bears do that? Why would you sit there and trade up 5 spots for a wide receiver? Go get your fucking guy. And when you look at the mock trade that I put forth here, I'm not saying Arizona would accept it because they probably really be hoping somebody like Minnesota, the Broncos, the Raiders, somebody in that 11 to 13 range would be desperate for whatever quarterback is left out of the top 4, that they come make an even bigger offer. But minimum here for Arizona, for them to walk out of this 4th pick, maybe give up like 104, and then get 975 and a 2025 first and third, they absolutely should do that. Meanwhile, for the Chicago Bears, you say, well, why would you want to give up a first-round pick next year? That's a recipe for disaster. Oftentimes, I would agree with that. However, you got to understand the situation that you're in. And if you think Caleb Williams is that dude, then the Bears are winning 10 or 11 games next year. That means that 2025 first-round pick is going to be in the fucking 20s, which is damn near a high second-round pick. No, you think that guy in the top 5 makes a big difference. You go get him. It doesn't always have to be a trade back. It doesn't always have to be a stand pat. I know you're cringing now, Bears fans. You're saying you want Ryan Poles to pull a Ryan Pace. In this case, maybe. If it makes sense. If that's the guy that he values. Which then, if this scenario plays out, makes it incredibly interesting at 5 because now the Chargers are sitting there. You got Drake Maye on the board. And now the Chargers are like, what the fuck are they doing? What are they going to do? And now Minnesota comes calling. And you have to assume at this point, Minnesota's trying to come up here, right? They're trying to get one of these quarterbacks. Why would they have made the move a couple weeks ago with the Texans to get a first round? Like, why would they have done that if the plan wasn't to make another big move up to go get a quarterback? And for them to get Drake Maye at 5, I'm sorry, but that does worry me a little bit as a Bears fan. The Vikings sitting there and having Drake Maye being coached by Kevin O'Connell, having Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison to throw the football to. No fucking thank you. No thank you. But similar, I think, to the past couple mock drafts I've had, 9 of the first 10 picks, 10 of the first 11 are offensive players. You start to get a little more defensive presence in the teens, but it's not great. This is an offense-heavy, offense-top draft. I think the big thing is once you start getting past the first offensive tackle or two, you're going to have a massive run, I think, on offensive linemen and offensive tackles at some point. Does that happen in like the 7 to 17 range? Does it happen more so in like the 11 to 25 range? I'm not sure yet, but you're going to see a bounty of offensive tackles go in this draft. Offensive linemen go early in this draft, and I understand it because that's one of the real strength positions in this year's class. But I'll post the mock draft in the comments, or not in the comments, in the fucking description. God damn it, I'm old. You let me know what you think. Bitch about it all you want. All right, I'm out.